Hi guys, I'm here with Kathleen Maca, and I'm here to talk about her brand new book. It's The Ghostly Tales of Galveston, and this is actually written specifically for young adults. How are you?
Hi, fine, thanks. How are you doing?
I am a huge fan of your books, and I always have been, but tell me about this new book and why did you decide to go for the younger audience?
Well, I've got The Ghost of Galveston that's been out a few years, but there are some stories in there that I might hesitate to tell younger ones, if it has a bordello or something in it, questionable topics you might not want your little one to read. So I honed those down and reworked them for middle school readers. And a young lady out of New York has illustrated it and has come up with just adorable illustrations for
wow.
it. So I'm really happy with it.
So, do you see young people wanting to discover not only like spooky tales, but your writing has a lot of Texas history and Galveston history. Do you see that there's a lot of interest in that?
I do, and it's kind of a fun way to sneak the history in, even if your child isn't really into history, but you give them a ghost book, they're going to read it, and there's going to be history snuck in there with it. But kids have a lot of questions about, if things happened in the old days, why aren't there ghosts? And there were so many historic things that happened in Galveston for centuries that it has spawned a lot of ghostly tales that go along with it. They kind of go hand in hand.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And when this book came out, you also had another book. I don't know how you come up with so much the time to write, but when this one came out, you had another book called The History of the Hotel Galvez. Why did you decide to write this one?
Well, everybody loves the Galvez. Everybody I know loves the Galvez. And it actually came out right as the new owners were taking possession of it. So the timing was not planned, but fortuitous. So I just wanted to share the history. It's such an amazing hotel. It hasn't just been a hotel. It was a symbol of rebirth of Galveston after the 1900 storm, that Galveston was back and ready for visitors. It opened in 1911. But since then, it has acted as the official White House for the U.S. for a time period. It was a barracks for the Coast Guard during World War II. It's had a lot of incarnations. So I wanted to pull all those stories into one place so people could enjoy them.
It's an interesting hotel, and number one, it's withstood so many things throughout history, but it's also one of the most haunted hotels in the U.S.
It is. It is. They have a lot of ghost stories that go with the hotel, and some of it is because of its position right on the beach where so many bodies were found, and some of it involves people who have stayed at the Galvez throughout the years and who wouldn't want to come back and stay there for eternity. It's nice.
Well, we've actually had some things that happened to us when we were doing a show at the Galvez, and it's definitely eye-opening. Your writing spans from, has covered the whole island. What's this fascination that you love about Galveston? What is it about Galveston that, number one, that you love, and that what people love? I mean, what is it about that island?
Well, it's unusual. At my publisher, I'm currently writing my 5th book about Galveston, and he said, so when are you going to run out of things to write about Galveston? And I laughed and told him he obviously didn't know Galveston. For being an island and a very limited land space, there's no end to the stories to be shared from there, because it's had so many different periods of history, from pirates to Civil War battles, from the gambling in casinos to the red light district. There's something that everybody's going to enjoy. There were some famous artists that lived in Galveston, and their art still exists on the island.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so I'm going to get to this book, which I've read, and it's awesome. And if you are someone who frequents the island, picking up this book, The Ghosts of Galveston, it's a great handbook to have, and to rediscover the places that some people have already been, but to know the tales that have happened. It's a great book. And I think every Texan or anybody or if you've never visited Galveston and you're planning to visit, this book is definitely something that you need to have in your library.
Thank you.
Tell me about this one. Tell me about this one.
Well, I do ghost tours on the Strand specifically, but the book covers the entire island. And the way I approached it was, if there's a building that has a tale, I'll tell you a little bit of history about the building and then the tale and why that story is from there. So you can actually use it as a self-guide around the island just to drive by some places that are still haunted. I had to hone down the number of stories I use because Galveston has so many stories, ghostly tales, that I only included ones that I could find genealogical proof that the person existed, their death certificate, or a newspaper account of the incident, something to say, well, at least it really happened. And whether or not there's still a ghost there, we'll leave it up to you. But it's just really fascinating and fun.
You know, one of the things that I love is that it's, number one, there's the 1900 storm, and then there's buried, people talk about buried treasure and all the things that have happened in Galveston. But when you're in Galveston and people recognize you, because I'm sure you get recognized all the time, do people come up to you and like, hey, I have this great ghost story for you?
Yes.
So does that happen a lot?
They do. And it's funny because I write about things other than ghosts, but I have fun with the ghost stories too. I was the kid in class that waited for the Scholastic flyer to come out so I could mark all the ghost books. That was me.
Yep, I know, me too.
So whether, the shop owners that I already know, I'll just pop in to buy something or say hello, and they'll have to stop me and tell me what the latest thing that happened in the shop was. Or a tourist, if they recognize me, they want to tell me something about their family home that's haunted or something that happened to them. It's a lot of fun. It's a great way to start a conversation and share folklore and heritage.
So one of the things that you had just talked about, which a lot of people don't know, is not only do you write great books, but also you do tours.
I do.
So tell me about that.
I do. I have a ghost tour on the Strand, which is the downtown historic district in Galveston, and that's a lot of fun. I do a strictly historic Strand tour to talk about the things that have happened there besides the ghosts. I do historic cemetery tours because we have some beautiful and fascinating cemeteries. And I've just started doing neighborhood tours of some of the historic districts in the neighborhood.
Oh, wow. So I know that I've actually been on your Galveston Broadway cemetery tour. It is so good. And, for someone who drives by the cemetery on Broadway, you drive by, and it takes 2 minutes to drive from one end to the other, but you don't realize, and in those 2 minutes, how many just amazing stories happened that have happened, or people that have been buried there, and then their stories. And this book basically highlights a lot of those stories, and they're fascinating. Yeah, tell me how hard, number one, it is to pull some of these stories from just the tombstones, from the graves here.
Well, I've actually been researching cemeteries since I was a child, so for over 50 years. That sounds like an odd thing to do. They call it a cemeterian. But I research and document old cemeteries, and I do gravestone restoration. So I just wanted to highlight the Broadway cemeteries because they're amazing. If you're interested in military history, there are veterans from the War of 1812 forward in this district. If you're an art fan, there is beautiful Victorian symbolism on the gravestones, as well as some famous artists that are buried there. If you're someone who comes down to Galveston for the homes tour, see all the pretty homes, well, the people that lived in those homes are in the cemetery district, and they have their own stories to tell.
It's a fascinating tour, and it's especially, what is it, in the spring where
in May
where the cemetery basically turns yellow with the beautiful flowers that are growing there. It's such a great it's a great tour, and it's a great book, and definitely worth a pickup.
Thank you.
But I am so, number one, I'm so happy to interview you, but just to let people know that the things that you write and your love for Galveston is is awesome, and I love to read these things about Galveston because I always pick up something new. So tell me about what's coming up.
I have a book just about to go to press about the Tremont House history. We're all familiar with the beautiful Tremont that's there now, but it's actually the third Tremont that's been on Galveston, so there's a long history going back to before statehood.
Oh, wow.
And then there are a couple of books behind that, so.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if people want to find you, or people want to buy some of the books, tell me where they can buy them and where they can seek you out.
Well, if they're local, they can always go to the Galveston Bookshop. They carry them, as well as gift shops along the Strand usually have them, or they can buy them on Amazon. If they're trying to find me for tours or speaking engagements or whatever, they can reach me at my website, which is just KathleenMacaAltogether.com.
Okay. Well, it is great talking to you, and I can't wait to read your next book that comes out.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it, John.
All right. Well, thank you.